Hello, Kiss Army YouTube. Thank you for joining us here on episode 9 of the Kiss Army Things podcast. I'm Xander.
I'm not Jeb.
Yeah, okay, so Jeb is actually in Tennessee this week. He is on vacation. Much needed vacation for him. So today joining me is my wife, Daphne. Daphne, how's it going?
Hello, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining us. So Daphne is actually what we call our supervising producer. She's helped us with setting up and helping us figure out the look of our podcast. So thank you for helping set up. We never really mentioned you, so this is kind of nice to actually have you on and introduce you, talk about you a little bit. I know that you're a Kiss fan. You're not a Kiss fan by association. You are a Kiss fan.
I am truly a Kiss fan.
You're truly a Kiss fan, and I like that. I think it makes our lives a lot easier. I think, and of course, I can't go any further without saying thank you for putting up with all this because,
of course,
yeah, for sure. But anyway, no. So the last couple weeks, as you know, and maybe you too if you've watched. So the last couple weeks, Jeb and I have been talking about the music. We've been talking about Kiss's best albums, their worst albums, their best songs, their worst songs. We've just been getting really deep into the music, which is great because obviously they're a band. I love their music, and we're going to talk about the music today too. But really, I think today we'll just introduce you. We'll talk about you as a Kiss fan. And then we may even talk about some of the concerts we've been to because that's one of the best things ever is getting to go to Kiss concerts. But as young people, we've been able to, go to concerts. Of course, not right now because of COVID and everything. But one of our hobbies is going to shows.
Oh yeah.
Not just Kiss. We've been to plenty other artists, but concerts are great. So I think we're just gonna kind of have a fun conversation talking about you because most Kiss fans. And even Jeb and I were Kiss fans like first, and then we're fans of other things.
Yeah.
And we've been fans our whole lives, so it's just kind of like second nature for us. Whereas you were a fan of other things, and then only later on, in your teenage years, you became a Kiss fan.
Right.
Whereas for a lot of Kiss fans, it starts when you're really young.
Yeah.
So for us, it's like we see Kiss through our child's eye. No matter what age we are,
right?
Whenever the curtain drops and we see them in makeup, for us, we go back to being a kid.
Yeah.
We go back to either being when we were kids watching Kiss Extreme close up, or when we saw Kiss for the first time. Maybe as fans, they remember the first time they heard Kiss Alive or Rock and Roll Over, or saw Kiss, in the 70s. But so I want to talk a little bit about how you became a Kiss fan, which obviously was because of me. But I want to get a little bit deeper into that. So. If I had to ask a question first, what was your knowledge of Kiss before I started, talking about it a lot and introducing you to it? Like, what did you know about Kiss, and what was your thoughts about Kiss prior to becoming a Kiss fan or even meeting me?
Yeah, pretty minimal. I would say. I mean, obviously, I was aware of them. It's hard not to be. I saw them, in pop culture. I feel like they were in a lot of movies, referenced in a lot of movies. I knew some of the hits from the radio because I was a big classic rock fan already. So I don't know how I didn't end up listening to Kiss until you. But I mean, I knew the basics, the hits: Detroit Rock City, Rock and Roll All Night, Beth, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it wasn't until I met you and Jeb really that I started diving a little bit deeper.
For sure. So, what was your first impression when you saw the level that Jeb and I were taking it to? Was it something that you were prepared for? Did you realize that Kiss fans were like that, or was it kind of like?
I don't think I realized that it was as big of a thing and a fandom until I met you guys, but I loved it. I mean, I'm a person who's a fan of a lot of things, so I'm all about that. I would never shame anybody for having something like this or being all into one thing, because I'm all into a lot of things. So
for sure. So you can appreciate the fandom.
Oh, definitely.
For sure.
Definitely. I've always appreciated the dedication, even before I started listening to the music and got into it.
Because I know you're a fan of Harry Potter.
Oh yeah.
And you've told me stories about growing up or being a teenager, going to midnight showings, dressing up as the characters. You've been to Harry Potter themed parties.
Yeah.
So you can understand when Kiss fans nerd out.
Oh yeah.
And even Star Wars. You're a fan of Star Wars too.
Star Wars. I was a huge Beatles fan when I met you.
How did I forget
that was
the
my
Beatles?
That was my big thing, so I got it.
Yeah. So this is our Kiss room. where obviously all the Kiss stuff is, and then in our next room,
Like
our computer
office,
room,
yeah.
our office, which is our Beatles room.
Yeah.
Because there's like
Because I also had a lot of memorabilia. Not this much.
But you still have like a Beatles
a decent
collection.
amount, yeah.
So all this isn't too far off from what you were.
Right.
From what you were. Okay. So do you remember the first time? I guess you probably don't know the first time you heard the music, but was like, do you know of a time where you heard the music and maybe you heard it differently, where instead of like listening, like instead of okay, it's a Kiss song. Was there ever a point now where you were starting to like become a fan and you were hearing the music differently? The songs were starting to hit different. It was starting to make sense. You were memorizing them. Do you know about what album maybe what that was?
I can't pinpoint an exact moment or album. I don't think, but I know like when we first started hanging out, I definitely on my own did a little bit of research and started to listen to stuff to impress you.
Aww.
I'm not gonna lie at first, but upon doing that, I realized how great the music actually was, and I really did start to get into it. I think one of the first albums that I really got into, I think I bought it at a garage sale or something, and would play it in my car a lot, was Rock and Roll Over.
Yep.
I also was really, really into the Unplugged album, live album, and would listen to that a lot early on. But yeah, I can't remember what I listened to first, but yeah, it was pretty early on that I realized I actually really, really liked the music.
For sure. Yeah, Rock and Roll Over is an album that we usually will drive to.
It's a great driving album.
If we're driving around, that's one that like Baby Driver and Mr. Speed.
No skips.
No skips. You mentioned Unplugged too. I'm surprised Unplugged hasn't been mentioned a lot on this podcast because
I still love
because
Unplugged.
Jeb and I are like we love the '90s Kiss.
Yeah.
We love Eric and Bruce's era, and Unplugged is fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a musical album.
Yep, and I think that's probably one of the ones that really, really got me into, them as musicians, because it is, it's live, and it's just, I don't know, there's something so charming about it, and I love it. I still listen to it.
So you are also kind of like Jeb and I in the sense that obviously since we were all born after the 70s, we weren't there in the 80s, we were all 90s kids. A lot of Kiss's, catalog, and certainly the first, at this point, the first half of Kisstory had already been laid out.
Yeah.
So you, like us, have a generalized bird's eye view of Kiss, where when you became a fan, it was easy for you to just look at their entire discography and kind of start, picking and going through there. You just mentioned how some of the first albums you listened to were Unplugged and Rock and Roll Over.
Yeah.
One from 76 and one that came out like in 95 and 96.
Yeah.
So, what would you say your favorite Kiss album is? Do you have a favorite Kiss album?
I probably would have to narrow it down to a couple because it's so hard to name just one. It's funny because the two I'm about to name are completely different, like opposite ends of the Kiss spectrum, in my opinion.
Okay.
One of which would be Revenge. I think Revenge is a masterpiece.
That's our number
one. I love
one.
that album. But I'm also a big fan of 80s Kiss.
Yeah, okay.
That might be my hot take, that I love 80s Kiss. So Crazy Nights is actually one of my favorite albums. But I'm also a big pop fan as well. Like, I love good pop music. That's done well, and so that song or that album that's such a awesome hybrid of rock and pop is so good.
You do like 80s Kiss.
Oh,
I have noticed that.
I love the energy.
You're wearing Hot in the Shade, which the tour was in 1990, but the album came out in 89. And you mentioned Crazy Nights. That's an album that not a lot of fans really talk about. That could have been in last week's episode. Talking about we talked
one
about
of the least popular ones.
We were looking at the best songs off the worst albums, and we could have easily switched Hot in the Shade out for Crazy Nights.
Yeah.
And you know how much I love Hot in the Shade.
Mm-hmm.
I love that album, so I think
too.
it's cool that some of the albums that end up on most fans' bottoms are at our top.
Yeah, I think honestly, I'll Fight Hell to Hold You is probably my number one favorite Kiss song.
Wow.
I love it so much.
Wow.
I think it's incredible.
That is a really good song. Paul's vocals are out of this world.
Oh my gosh, out of this world.
So Crazy Nights and Revenge are both your favorite. So, and you are correct. Those are like complete polar opposite as far as like on the music spectrum goes. So why those two? Like, is there something about those two that stand out more, or is it just something that like, hey, you like what you like, which is fine. If you like what you like, you like what you like.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, just to pick your brain a little bit, is there anything about those two albums that like stand out that those two albums have that maybe others don't? Or is it just like general nuances between the two? Or
for Crazy Nights, I think it's just such a fun album. It's like a party album. It's so high energy and so fun. Paul's vocals, like the melodies on each song, are really, really cool. And then Revenge, I don't even know where to start on Revenge. I just think it's the most cohesive. Like, that's another one that's like absolutely no skips. The whole album just flows together so well. I don't have a really technical answer. I just love them both so much.
Well, I mean, and that's totally fine because you like what you like.
Yeah.
But yeah, you did mention that you were a fan of pop music.
Mm-hmm.
So Crazy Nights, that would definitely that definitely makes sense. One of the things that keeps coming up on this podcast is the idea of Kiss having fun music.
Yeah.
We keep saying that they're a fun band. They have fun energy and they have fun music.
Yeah.
And so it sounds repetitive, but I think that statement is true. I think Kiss obviously brings us a lot of joy.
Yeah.
Whether it's the music or the experiences,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that I've been really fortunate to share with you.
Oh, yeah.
Is all the great experiences that we've gotten to have, whether it's the expos and the concerts. So, do you remember what your first expo was?
Yes. That would be 2015.
Uh-huh.
I think I met Eric Singer at the 2015 Expo. It was so much fun. It was my first time getting a chance to go with you guys, and I had no idea what to expect. I mean, you had told me all about it, and I was excited, but just to walk in and just to automatically be a part of this big community, I think that's one of my favorite things about Kiss and Kiss fans is that it just brings people together. And I didn't know any of those people, but you just automatically have a bond with them because you're all there for the same thing. And I think there's something so cool about that. And yeah, I've just loved going to the expos ever since then.
Have you ever been to a Comic-Con or a Gen Con or whatever kind of event?
I think I'd maybe been to one Comic-Con before that. And it's a similar vibe, but in that case, it's so general, and you're there for a lot of different small things, so it doesn't feel... I mean, it's still cool. Like, I love all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't feel as much as one big community as the expos do. I can't think of any experience I've had that's quite like an indie Kiss expo.
For sure, yeah. The PopCon or whatever it's called, the Gen Cons and all that. They are much larger in scale than the Kiss Expo, but yeah, they're more broad as far as like the fandoms. So had you? I don't think you'd ever met anybody famous before. Like, was Eric Singer the first time you met a celebrity?
I think so. I can't think of anybody I would have met before then that would be at that level. So that was.
Did that make you nervous?
Crazy. Yeah, definitely.
Did that make you nervous?
Yeah, because even though that was my first time going to an expo, I mean, I started listening to Kiss in around 2012, so I still had been into the music for a few years at that point and was a huge fan. So, yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking.
I remember when I met Eric for the first time, it was in 2011. It was at the 2011 Kiss Expo. And at that point, I was like a sophomore or a junior in high school, so I was like 16, 17. And I kept it cool the whole time. And like, even when we were in line, and like 5 people away, I was still okay. And then my dad just happened I could still like hear him saying it. He bent down and he was like, just think, like, that's the guy. That's your favorite drummer. He is sitting in front of you and you get to like shake his hand and meet him.
Like, wow, way to make me nervous, Dad.
And I was like, dude, no, like, don't say that.
I was fine.
I was good. Like, I was totally prepared. I was like, just be good. Be cool. And he bent down and made sure that I knew that, like, you need to, like, appreciate. I was like, I know.
Soak in the moment.
He was like, soak it in, but I was like, I need to make sure I maintain my composure here because, like, yeah, you don't want to act stupid or something in front of a celebrity or anything. But that's pretty cool that you got to share do that with us. I think let's see, Derek was there.
Yes.
Of course, Jeb was there. There's actually a video on the channel.
Oh, from that expo,
it's
right?
one of the, I'm surprised I forgot all about it. It's one of the first videos that we uploaded to this channel. and it was the Indianapolis Kiss Expo recap.
I forgot that we actually took some cameras with us and tried to document it a little bit.
Yeah, that was
a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun, and that was the first time that Jeb and I, or us, had really ever decided to make Kiss videos.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually, Jeb and I wanted to do something like this back then.
Oh yeah, I remember you talking about it.
We wanted to do, even if it wasn't a podcast, but vlog style videos,
right.
or videos like that, where we did the expo recap, where it's just we shot fly on the wall footage,
mm-hmm.
and just captured the event and put it and wrapped it up in a nice little video.
Yeah.
And I think after that we did the Types of Kiss Fans video. That was fun too, because that was us sort of wanting to step into the world of making Kiss videos, Kiss content. You can really see what we were trying to go for.
Yeah. And
so fast forward to 2021, where we've done a few videos on the channel already, and then with this podcast, finally it's able to happen. So it was really great, because we get to sit here and just reflect on all of our experiences, and so the expos are the best. Is there a particular, because you've met a few members now,
mm-hmm.
so is there any one that stands up above the rest? Is there one that you love to meet?
Yeah.
Or one that you feel has given the most?
Yeah. So I've met Eric a few times. I got to meet Ace, which was just in and of itself amazing.
Yep.
Just the fact that I got to meet Ace Frehley is so great. But honestly, my favorite Kiss member to meet, who I can't remember if I've met him I think twice now, is Bruce Kulick. He is just fantastic. He's such a great guy.
What a mensch.
Even though you only get, a couple moments with them as you're passing through to have something signed and take a picture, he just makes every person feel like special, and he cares about them, and he'll say something specific to each person,
Yeah.
And which of course I can't remember what it was, but he just is so fun to meet. He's such a down-to-earth guy, and I think he's probably my favorite member that I've met so far.
For sure. He was Jeb and I's first member.
Oh, really?
We met Bruce Kulick for the first time in 2009 at the Indie Expo, and I was nervous for that.
Yeah.
We were nervous because, of course, again, Jeb and I were lifelong Kiss fans. I think Unholy might have been one of the first Kiss songs, Kiss videos we ever watched. So, yeah, Bruce has always been somebody that, we've always loved and loved meeting as well. Hopefully we can get him on the podcast at some point, because I think Jeb and I have talked about compiling a list of questions for him.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Just because you're right, he is down to earth. He loves talking about Kiss, and he loves talking to Kiss fans. I think this poster right here, I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but this poster right here, I think we got this in 2017.
Yeah, that was the year that I couldn't go.
That was the year that you missed.
I had a wedding, yeah.
Because it was the same day as a wedding. And when we went, Bruce was there, and I think he was
I hadn't
sick.
met him yet, yeah.
I think he was sick that year. And whereas everybody else had, markers and, pictures and things on their desk,
yeah,
he had Kleenexes and hand sanitizer and whatever, because he was sick.
Yeah,
but
he was still there.
He was still there.
That's
he was
awesome.
still there. He didn't cancel, and even though, he, you could tell that he would like to be somewhere else, he made the best of it. And, that's the kind of guy Bruce is. I think that's the poster that we got.
It is.
And I got it signed, for you.
Yeah, I was excited because I was excited to meet Bruce that year, because it would have been my first time. And then, of course, I ended up not being able to go because one of my best friends was getting married. But, yes, I was so excited when he came home with that. And then I got to meet Bruce. Was it the following
2018
year?
with Ace.
Yeah.
Ace and Bruce
which was so cool.
Ace and Bruce were there. Eric Singer was there again.
Yep, we saw him again.
Eric Singer, Ace Frehley, Bruce Kulick, Bob Kulick, and Todd Kearns all performed together.
Amazing.
You were spoiled.
That was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
You were spoiled.
Yeah.
Because there are tons of Kiss fans.
That was probably the best expo.
that would love to be there and see triple guitar action between Bruce, Bob. Of course, Bob's no longer with us.
Right, so it's so cool that I even got to see him.
Both of them slayed.
Yeah.
Ace, Bruce, Bob. Yeah, again, Eric on drums. My gosh. Yeah,
awesome.
So that was fun. Yeah, the expos are fantastic. Oh, don't forget, you also met Tommy and Doc.
Why didn't I mention Tommy Thayer? What am I talking about? Yeah, you're right. Tommy is also up there with Bruce of one of the best people to meet.
And then Doc was like, wait, what?
That was so cool. But yeah, Tommy Thayer, I'm so glad you said that. I don't know why I wasn't thinking of him. But he's also up there with one of the best people to meet. He just gives you, I just feel like in the moment that you get to meet him, he gives you his undivided attention, and is just such a gentleman, such a good guy. So yes, I definitely enjoyed meeting Tommy too.
Yeah, if you ever want to go get information, go to Bruce, go to Tommy.
Yeah.
Because they're the kind of guys that will just tell it like it is. I think Gene will too, but Gene also sugarcoats things.
Oh yeah.
Because Gene's he's spicy and he wants to be because it's entertainment.
Yeah.
But but there's some great Q&As. I think those Q&As, we didn't film them. I mean, we did, but in pieces. But I think if you just go to YouTube and you type in Bruce Kulick, Indie Expo Q&A, Tommy Thayer, Bruce, Q&A, they're up there. They exist, and they're great. They're fun.
It's always good stuff, yeah.
Because they answer great questions.
Because they don't give you just the generic, like, surface-level answers. They'll tell you cool stories you haven't heard before.
Yeah.
Or, like, a different side of a story you do know. It's really cool.
And that one expo with Doc and Tommy was 2016, so that would have been Kiss Rocks Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
We got to see...
we went to the theater the night before the expo.
The theater.
And saw it in theaters.
See, that's just fun stuff. Like,
that was great. And Tommy was there.
He was
there at the theater. We saw him. We were, like, super close to him. It was awesome.
That was great. He did show up at the very end and did some questions and everything. That was a 2-day expo. That was awesome.
It's a great weekend.
See, Kiss will give you experiences like that. So, again, Jeb and I have been fans all our lives. This is just the life that we've lived.
Yeah.
We're kind of like, you're on the outside looking in, jumping head first in. So between all of the things that you're a fan of, like, is there anything that compares to Kiss in that regard, where it feels like most bands, most artists, they feel like they're light years away. They feel like they're in another world. They exist only in the TV screen or the computer screen, the phone screen. Whereas with Kiss, I mean, it is like a part of us, and we all get to come together, and we've met the members, we know them, and so, like, is there anything that compares to that?
No, I
don't think so, but I'm biased.
I'm not saying that there isn't out there, but as far as stuff I know, stuff I'm a fan of, nothing at that level. Nothing to where you can just buy a ticket, drive to... Because, I mean, we're lucky that we live in Indiana and that these expos are so close to us. We drive an hour, and these tickets are not outrageously expensive, and you get an experience, you get to meet all these cool people. I can't think of any other... like band or fandom that's like that.
Kiss fans get to have some of the best experiences, I feel like.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you also meet so many people along the way. Like, you know so many people that you would not know if it were not for Kiss.
Very true.
Like, I've only been a part of this community for a few years now, and there's still, when we go to the expos, there's people I see that I remember and that I know. Like, I'm friends with a couple of them on Facebook, and, like, it's just cool that... you never would have met those people otherwise, and you might not even have that much in common apart from Kiss, but like I said, it brings people together. It's
that one thing that connects you together.
It just connects everybody, and I love anything that does that. Anything that brings people together and makes a community. It's just, you can't beat it.
Yeah, it's an easy icebreaker being a Kiss fan.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, let's shift from, talking about experiences, so let's go from the expos to concerts. Because that's where it's at.
Oh, yeah.
Again, we've been very fortunate to have an active Kiss, an active touring Kiss, where, you mentioned the Beatles. Mm-hmm. The Beatles, unfortunately, have not been a band for decades.
Well, and even when they were, they only toured for 2 or 3 years before they gave up.
Yeah, and then they were only a band for, 10 years total, around that. So, being fans of that era of music, it's been amazing to have an active touring Kiss.
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's talk about your first Kiss concert, which I'm pretty sure was in 2016.
Yes.
On the Freedom to Rock tour.
Yes.
So I think you had seen Kiss footage before, so you knew about the blood spitting and the fire breathing and all that. But what was your first Kiss concert like? Because you knew.
See, theoretically, I knew what to expect. I've seen the footage. I've seen, we've watched probably full concerts and everything, but you just can't be prepared for what it's actually like live. It's insane. It's a whole experience. I don't even have the words for it.
I wish I could see it through your eyes, because Jeb and I saw Kiss in 2003, and I was in 3rd grade, and he was in kindergarten. And so when you're in 3rd grade and kindergarten, you're still way too young to really process things. Yeah. And so, again, when we see Kiss live now, it's like that, where, we feel like a kid again. You saw Kiss when you were, 20? Or 19?
Something like that.
So you were grown.
Yeah.
You were grown. You had seen other shows. You had seen other bands. How does Kiss compare?
I feel like they still have that ability.
They do still have that ability.
Even though I wasn't a kid, like a little kid when I got into them, I still feel like they bring that out of you at any age. Like if you let it, if you surrender to it, and you just have a good time, and you just can't stay in your seat. You gotta sing along. You gotta enjoy it.
I've always wondered like how biased Kiss fans are because again, Jeb and I we've seen almost a dozen Kiss shows, and so I often think like, is it possible for people to see Kiss for the first time as an adult and still be like that involved and that enthralled by it? Because I feel like again, when you're like us, we just see it like a kid would, or we see it in the same way that we always have. So it's nice to know that you can be on the outside looking in and still find value, find joy in that. Because Kiss they are kind of repetitive.
They are,
where
but
we've seen multiple Kiss shows, and you can always expect them to do the blood spitting, the fire breathing, the rockets, Paul's Gonna Fly. They have their checklist, but man, is it like the best time. But it hits every time, though. It's the best time
really
ever.
Does.
It doesn't matter.
And if you're a fan of rock music and going to concerts, you just can't deny their showmanship. And like they put on a show. They entertain you. Nobody else does costumes, pyro, makeup like they do. Like you can try, but nothing is gonna be on that level. And I've seen a lot of concerts, and they've all been great, but nothing even comes close to their level of commitment, and they just want every moment to be worth it. They want every moment to be entertaining, and they succeed.
They really do.
They really do.
So, Freedom to Rock, that was in Fort Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
We went on vacation a couple days later.
Oh, gosh.
We came back from vacation, and what happened?
We went to another show, like, the day after.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was literally Kiss show, beach, Kiss show.
Which, that was like the best week of our life.
Craziest week, but best week.
That was the best week ever. So we saw, so you saw 2 shows 10 days apart.
For my first 2 shows ever.
On the same tour.
Yeah.
For your first 2 Kiss shows. Whereas Jeb and I saw Kiss in 2003 and had to wait until 2010 to see him again.
Oh my gosh.
7-year gap.
Yeah.
From 3rd grade to sophomore in high school. Huge gap. Whereas you saw him 10 days apart.
Days.
We spoiled you again.
Yeah.
We spoiled you again.
I'm lucky.
That's great. Yeah, you are very lucky. That was so much fun. Yes, and then we got to see Aurora in 2017.
Yes.
We were 10th row center for that.
Oh, that was a good day.
That was
we were in line all day long. So worth it though.
Yeah, and we ran into we didn't get to chat with him too long, but we did get to see as we were pulling in and parking, Mark Giacchini and Tony Summers from the Three Sides podcast. As we were pulling in, they were walking toward, to their I'm assuming their meet and greet.
Yeah, probably.
I would just assume. And while we were going to park, and so we were able to like, hey, what's up?
Yeah,
got to see them. Cool. That was pretty cool. 10th row center. But I want to talk about the end of the road tour the most.
Yeah.
Because that's the tour that we're on now. That's the tour that we've seen the most shows from, and this is the tour that we're going to remember the band by. Our first show was in March of 2019. Their show is insane. I'm not sure what you want to call them, but they're like the octagonal pods.
Mm-hmm.
They revamped their pyro. They have new costumes.
Dude, can I just say, I remember the first time that I saw during that show, I saw Tommy do that thing with the rocket that goes off of his guitar.
Yeah.
He's done that obviously before, but with those octagons on the ceiling, the way they executed that, he aimed it straight at it, and it looks like he hits it and it explodes because there's like something on the screen that's like an explosion. And the first time you see it, even though logically you know that like it's fine and it's part of the show, that first moment you're like, oh my gosh, did he just hit that? Did he break that? Because it like shuts down after that.
Yeah, he shot the rocket and then it almost like came quote unquote disconnected.
Yeah.
And it shakes and
dies.
wobbles.
It's so cool.
Yeah, I'm hoping that was part of the show.
It is, because it's happened since then. Yeah.
Because we saw it, we were like, but no, that's
part
awesome.
of the show.
There was like the spaceman, like the alien ship or whatever flying behind him. That was
awesome.
Cool. That was awesome. So let's look at the set list because again, this is the last tour. that Kiss will be playing, and this is how we're gonna remember them by. So, what did you feel of the set list? Did because you said that you like to bounce around as far as you like Rock and Roll Over, you like Unplugged, you like Revenge. What stood out from the set list to you? Because Jeb and I have talked a little bit about it, but I want to get your thoughts.
I mean, I feel like they do a pretty good mix of the decades and the eras, if you will.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it right now because I want to see if there's anything that sticks out to me. I love that they did Say Yeah. I really, really enjoyed seeing that live.
Yep.
I don't know if they had been doing that before End of the Road.
I think they brought it back on the show we saw in Aurora. They played it in 2017. But before that, it hadn't really been in the set.
Because Sonic Boom is also one of the albums that I was listening to early on because it was newer when I first started listening to Kiss. So I'm a big fan of that album as well, and I feel like it doesn't get enough love personally. So that was a good one. What I will say, though, is that the next show that we went to, which was was it August? Mm-hmm. August 2019 in Cincinnati.
Yep.
That one, and I think you knew this ahead of time, but you didn't tell me because you wanted me to be surprised. But the set list was pretty similar. Pretty much the same for the most part, actually.
Yep.
Until we got to the encore. Eric did Beth at the piano, which I always love. I think it's a beautiful version. I love his voice. But then they do Crazy Nights, which I loved so much. I've always wanted to see that live because it's the ultimate. It's just the ultimate party song.
It's the fun song, like you mentioned earlier. It's that fun song.
Like you just can't help but have a good time, and like it was every bit as good live as I wanted it to be. Like it was just so exciting. So that was definitely my favorite of that second show in August.
And I'm so glad they played that too because going back to that one show I talked about. So we saw them in 2010. On the Hottest Show on Earth tour, and I was a sophomore at the time, and I remember thinking that I was like the coolest. I was like, I'm 16 now. I'm not a little kid. I was a little kid when I saw my first Kiss concert. Now I'm not a little kid. Now I know everything.
I'm grown.
Huh?
I said I'm grown.
I'm grown. They're not going to play one song that's going to stump me. And they actually played two. They played I'm an Animal from Sonic Boom, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But they also played Crazy Nights.
Really?
At that show. And I remember, like, freaking out.
Yeah.
Because I almost didn't recognize it. Or, no, he said that these are Crazy Crazy Nights before the song. Mm-hmm. And so I was, like, stumped because I was like, they have not played this song live. And I don't know how long. I had never seen it live.
Yeah.
And I think after that, until this tour, they hadn't played it either. So it's nice to see that song back in the set list on this tour because, like you said, it is the ultimate fun 80s song.
Yeah, the moment I knew that he was about to play it, because he does say a little thing in his banter right beforehand. He says something about Crazy Nights, and so you know it's about to happen. Mm. I remember turning to you, and I was like, "No way!" And you were like,
"I was like, yes way." Yeah, it's awesome. Happening. It's happening. It was
great.
That was a great addition to the set list, I think.
I think that's the show that we were able to, obviously Jeb was there, but we were able to bring your guys' sisters to as well for their first concert.
And their last, probably.
But still, like the fact that they had always wanted to see Kiss.
That was very special.
It was their first chance to see them with us, and it was so much fun.
That's one of the cool things, too, about going to these Kiss events is the people that you bring.
Oh, yeah.
Because we haven't had Derek on yet, but having Derek come to concerts and expos, bringing you along with Jeb and I. And
Ryan with us at the expos, too.
Oh, yeah. Ryan was there in 2018. He was there when...
Yeah, he's been to a couple expos with us.
Yeah, Ryan was there with us when Eric and Bruce and Bob and everybody...
Oh, you're right. And that was his first expo, too, wasn't it?
That was his first expo.
Yeah, he got extra lucky on that one.
Spoiled him, too. We'll just get everybody in the mix. That's the fun part, though, is bringing all your friends with it. And, great times. So, End of the Road. We talked about... the first couple shows. So the last show we saw on the End of the Road tour was February 16th, 2020.
Yes.
This was a month...
Right before the pandemic.
A month before the shutdown happened. And I'm not sure if you have that set list pulled up.
No, but I can.
If you want to, go ahead. I'm pretty sure some things changed then, too. I think they were still playing Crazy Nights.
What was it, February?
February 16th.
Okay.
And that would have also been in Fort Wayne. They were still playing Crazy Nights. I think a couple shows after that, they dropped it in place of Do You Love Me. Because that first show we saw in Louisville, they were playing Do You Love Me.
It was Do You Love Me, for sure.
And then that song came out for Crazy Nights by the time we saw them in August. And then same thing in February. But fast forward, I think by the time March came around, Crazy Nights was out and Do You Love Me was back in.
Yeah, which I love Do You Love Me. Don't get me wrong. Great song. But I have heard it. I've heard it a lot. You know?
Yeah. They played Do You Love Me in 2016. Oh, man, we were robbed in 2016. So when we saw them in 2016 on the Freedom of the Rock Tour, I'm pretty sure they had started playing... They were playing Creatures of the Night, the song.
Yeah.
And a couple shows before ours, they dropped that song in place of Do You Love Me.
Yes,
and
I
again,
remember that.
I love Do You Love Me, but I would have rather have heard Creatures of the Night. And they had been playing it ever since 2014, but we saw them in August 2014, and they weren't playing it then, but by November, they were playing it. And we missed it barely in the beginning.
So close.
And we missed it at the end, so I still had not seen that song live. But anyway, so they had changed the set list a little bit. I think maybe. Because for the most part, Tears Are Falling.
Yes. Oh, that's another one I was super excited
That's another
for.
80s one.
As a huge 80s fan.
Where did that come from?
Love it.
Tears Are Falling. I'm trying to think. No, they played it on Rocks Vegas.
Okay.
They played it on Rocks Vegas, but only for that little stint. They didn't play it on the 40th anniversary tour. They didn't play it on the Freedom to Rock tour. So that was a song that Tears Are Falling, came out of nowhere almost. But also good representation of the 80s Kiss. Yeah. Because I feel like this tour, when we're looking at the set list right now, this 80s Kiss is everywhere.
Yeah, Heaven's on Fire, Lick It Up. Like, I'm seeing so much just looking at the screen.
Heaven's on Fire is a song that never gets played live. The only time I can think of is the Farewell Tour and the Monster Tour.
Yeah.
And maybe a couple Kiss Cruises. They did play it on the Kiss Cruise in the last couple of years, but that's a song that is in my top 5.
Me too, probably. At least top 10.
It's fantastic song.
Fantastic
That one, Tears Are Falling. You can always expect songs like War Machine, I Love It Loud, and Lick It Up to be in the set list. But then again, we mentioned songs like Crazy Nights. I mean, that's a big chunk of the set list is 80s Kiss, which I think is fantastic.
Represent.
Fantastic. The one for me that was the most surprising for our show in February was Parasite.
Yes, I remember you and Jeb both being really excited about that.
Because when we look at this, the set list, I'm pretty sure for the other ones, if they took out Do You Love Me, they're going to put in Crazy Nights.
Right.
If they're going to take out one, they're going to put one in place. This one, they didn't take anything out for Parasite.
They just added it?
They just added it in. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's unusual.
Because I'm pretty sure there was only, I'm pretty sure Parasite was one that really didn't have anything
got a bonus
taken out for. It was just added in. It was almost like they just separated the set list and then put one in.
Plugged it in there.
And that one was one that we'd never seen live before. And I think that's a fantastic song.
Definitely.
That song is it just rips. It's fast and heavy.
Yeah.
Psycho Circus, always a great Kiss song.
Yeah, especially.
And then what was the other one on this set list that I loved so much on this tour? Maybe it wasn't during this show because I'm not seeing it, but it's "Let Me Go Rock and Roll."
I don't think they did that at this show.
They did not. They didn't play it in February, but they played it in Louisville.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure. Maybe Tears Are Falling. Maybe Let Me Go Rock and Roll came out and Tears Are Falling was
I bet that was it.
They are doing a little bit of flip-flopping with the tour, which is great.
Which I like.
They're keeping it fresh.
Yeah, which, I mean, even though you might miss the one that you want to hear, you also kind of never
Creatures.
know what you're going to get, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
Because the general set list, the big ones that you're going to hear, but the fact that there might be a little...
Yeah, they do keep it pretty consistent, the set list. They do.
Just a couple little surprises here.
You can always expect Detroit Rock City to open the show.
Obviously.
Deuce and Shout Loud are always the second and third songs,
Yep.
usually roughly. You can expect to hear Love Gun, Black Diamond.
Yep.
But songs like Heaven's on Fire, Tears Are Falling, Crazy Nights, cycling with songs in, I think is great. It helps keep it fresh. So you feel that this set list is a nice...
I think it's a good balance.
A good balance of
I mean, I would like to see more of the newer Kiss songs, but I also understand why they don't play more. Like from Sonic Boom and Monster. I know that's not what the general public is there for, but I would like to see more. More modern Kiss.
I'm pretty sure in Aurora, when they've said, this next one's called Say Yeah, it was just the four of us.
We were like, yeah!
The four of us, you, myself, Jeb, and Derek.
Yeah.
We're
all about it.
Yeah! And then Paul, because there was nobody else, pointed at us and was like, yeah, whoop, thanks, great, here we go.
You like it.
These guys know what's up.
Yeah.
Because we loved that. So, okay, so you would like to hear more current Kiss.
Yeah.
What song?
Wow,
what do you
that's
think,
a good question.
What do you think is the song that should be played? I'm going to go left field. This would never happen. Could never happen. But the song that I wish they would play live and thought that they should play live is Shout Mercy.
Oh, that'd be a good one.
I always felt Shout Mercy, even though it wasn't a single, it has not yet to this day been played live. I still think that is a great Kiss song.
Have they ever done Hell or Hallelujah live?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like that
one's on Rocks Vegas.
That's a great concert song that would translate really well.
That one was the lead single from Monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one that one's great. I think that I feel like the only one they probably could do would be Hell or Hallelujah.
Yeah.
If they're doing Say Yeah from Sonic Boom, unless they did
Modern Day Delilah, I want to hear every time. That would be
is
so great.
top 5.
Yeah. Like if I could hear that at every Kiss concert, I'd be happy. That's
a top 5.
That's
for me.
like the epitome of a Kiss song to me. I don't know why. It's just so good.
It really is. And I remember hearing it for the first time, and I was like, oh my gosh. Because, of course, it was the first new Kiss song in 11 years.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. I love Sonic Boom, but I wish the whole album was up to the same standard.
Definitely. Yeah.
As that opening track.
Right.
Because I felt like there are some good songs on Monday Delight or on Sonic Boom.
But they're not all at that level.
But they don't. Say Yeah is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't all compare to that opening track.
Agreed.
I would like to hear Monday Delilah, but yeah, also Hell or Hallelujah. I agree. I wish they would, even if it was cycled out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, at this point they've been playing Say Yeah for a majority of the tour. I felt like it would be okay if they did take it out and try Hell or Hallelujah.
Yeah.
I think it'd be
fun.
I think it would keep the set list fresh.
Yeah.
And I think it would give a chance for the fans and the audience to hear more current Kiss. And I know that the diehards that are going to multiple shows on the tour would like to hear something fresh.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed watching them kind of play out these different songs. So the last thing I want to talk about before we wrap up, and it's a pretty heavy topic as far as the Kiss world goes, and that is Paul Stanley's lip syncing.
Okay.
This whole episode we've been pretty positive, pretty just Kiss is great, Kiss la 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 la. But this is something that people have been talking about a lot since the tour started, and so but we're also the Kiss fans that have been in the game for a while, and so I want to know from you, having a fresh sort of opinion on this. When it comes to, because you heard it, you heard Paul, you've been to multiple shows, you've heard the same track twice,
definitely.
And it's been noticeable. So how do you feel, what are your thoughts about Paul having some help?
Yeah, so I know that's a touchy subject. Me personally, I don't have as big of an issue with it as I think a lot of people do, just because, first of all, I know he's not lip syncing the entire show. That would be one thing. It seems to me that he's using lip syncing as kind of a supplemental way to be able to get through a whole show and still be able to use those power vocals when he really needs them. Because, I mean, let's be real, at his age and with all that his voice has been through, he can't do all that anymore, which is fine. It's normal. It's human. It happens. He's a human. Like, I don't fault him for that. I think he's just strategically using it in certain songs and certain sections as a way to save his own voice to get him through the whole show so that the experience still feels the same.
Yeah.
Now, is it noticeable sometimes? Yes. And you could always get into, I know people have an issue with that contradicting some things they've said in the past about not wanting to lip sync.
Right.
So I get the concerns and they're valid. I do get it, but personally I don't have an issue with it the way that he's doing it. I think it's fine.
Are there any songs in particular where you've noticed you can really tell that he is singing with a backing track?
I remember there's a couple specifically that we've watched some videos on, but I can't remember off the top of my head what they were. But I know we've kind of gone through and compared certain videos, and it's undeniable that it's there.
Shout It Out Loud.
Okay, yes, I remember now.
And this is the one that stands out the most to me, because back when before they started the tour, they were doing a string of like late night shows. They did Fallon, and they did Kimmel, and they did Conan, and they did what's the other guy's name? He does the Corden.
James Corden, yeah.
James Corden. They did all these performances on late night television, and on one of them they played Shout It Out Loud. Mm-hmm. And you can always expect when any band, I don't care who they are, I don't care what era they're from, it doesn't matter. You can expect them to sing to a tape and maybe even play to a tape, just because networks aren't going to take the chance.
Right.
It doesn't matter who you are, what band you are.
Yeah.
If you want on live TV, you're going to play by their rules.
Yeah.
And Kiss is no exception.
Simpler, yeah.
So, whereas I think maybe on Jimmy Kimmel in 2012, they played live. And a couple other places they played live. Most often than not, it's going to be played to a tape. And it's going to be pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Because of that. And I can't give Kiss any flack for that, because it's not their fault.
No.
Not their decision.
Right.
So it was
it's not their show.
It was easily, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was
they're being
easy
featured
to,
on a show. Yeah.
Yeah, they're being given time.
Yeah.
But it was pretty clear on that performance of Shout Out Loud, but prior to the end of the road, that was a tape, of course. And the reason why I knew is because, or besides the obvious, because it's standard in the industry, was because when Paul said, "Get your party started," he adds this little like inflection to it that he never has added before.
Yeah.
Because usually it's just "Get your party started." Now he quickens it and he pulls that last part out.
Yeah.
Now he says, "Get your party started."
Yeah.
It's very quick. And again, if you go back and watch that late night performance, if you go back and watch whatever show you saw on the end of the road tour, and if you see the show in Dubai, they all sound the same.
Yeah.
So there is no denying that Paul is having some help vocally on this tour. And for me, I wanted to get your opinion, because again, you're somebody who Kiss fans were very passionate. We're very, we're silly. We're very hardcore about it sometimes, and so we have very strong opinions about it. I know a lot of Kiss fans are against it.
Yeah.
They think that it is repulsive and it's a disgrace, and it somehow undoes what they've done in the past.
That's ridiculous.
And I think Kiss fans are a little quick to be.
Yeah.
We're quick to say things, and we're quick to get defensive. We're quick to get emotional.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, as obvious as it is, I think it's a little too late for them to do this. I think it's a little too late, but it's also too late to care.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, if they're going to do this, they should have done it either several tours ago or not at all. Why wait to the last? But you know what? It's the last show, so I really can't be...
For me, I think...
It's too late to care.
Yeah, for me,
because
I
it's
think...
the last Kiss tour. We need to enjoy the band, have fun, and understand that, he is doing it for a reason.
Yeah.
It's not just to...
Yeah, for me, I think that personally, it doesn't take me out of the moment, which is the only reason I would have a complaint, is if it's obvious enough when you're at the show. Now, if you're hyper fixating on it and you're looking for it and you're spending your whole show analyzing every line and trying to find it, yeah, you'll probably find it.
Yeah.
But if you're not, like, I'm not thinking about it personally, even though I know it's there. When I'm at the show, I'm not thinking about it. It doesn't take me out of it. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't at all. And I think for them, it's just quality control for their last tour. I think they just want the last tour to be as good as it can possibly be consistently. And I think that's their way of doing that. So, I mean, I understand why people have issues with it, and I also understand, your view of they should have been doing this before. But personally, like you said, I think it's too late to care, and I think they're not doing it enough for it to be an issue for me personally.
Yeah. I think that, personally, I think they shouldn't do it at all. Now, I totally agree that, even though I think that it is needed, or, if they feel like it's needed, then it is needed. If Paul wants to, it's his decision. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I highly doubt somebody's forcing him to.
Yeah.
Like I don't see anybody forcing Paul Stanley to do anything, honestly. And so if that's his choice, then that's his choice.
I respect
and I think it's also very It's also nice to hear the fact that it is still modern day Paul Stanley.
Yeah.
It's not them pulling from the studio tracks.
Oh, definitely.
I feel like most artists, and let's be real, most artists do lip sync for the majority of their performances, and even if they're not, they're singing along to a tape where you're hearing, for instance, like you're hearing the artist with the microphone singing every other line, every other note.
I feel like that's the most common.
Most common form of lip syncing, if you will, is a vocal track playing for the entire song,
right? And
then the actual artist
sing over it for part of the time.
For part of it.
Yeah.
As much as I love Eminem, I believe Eminem does that. Now, Eminem also is singing way more words, rapping way more words than Kiss will ever do.
That requires a lot more breath control.
That would require a lot. I mean, he does Rap God live.
I know.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Not gonna find Kiss doing that, but also, so it's not for the whole show. Paul is, he's using it, to go in and out, from verse to verse to ensure that, his voice can maintain a common consistency throughout the show, throughout the tour.
I get it.
One common, complaint I've heard probably since the last 10 years is where the beginning of a tour, Paul will start strong.
Yeah.
And fans are like, hey, Paul's voice, he sounds really good, really strong. And then by the time he gets to us in the Midwest, which is always August, September, towards the end of the tour, that is not the case because he's playing 3 shows a week.
Yeah, and I think this is his way of avoiding that.
It's good for him.
Of trying to make sure that everybody at every show, no matter if you're catching them at the beginning in 2019 or now in 2021, 2022, like, he wants it to all be consistent. Because especially if it's going to be your last Kiss show ever, he wants them all to be the best. Yeah. So I get it. I get it.
Yeah, it's I'm on both sides of the fence, and I'm pretty good at doing that. Where I usually look at a situation and I'm like, okay,
try and see both perspectives.
Here's my feelings, but here's the reality. There's a difference. Oh my gosh, wow! There's a difference between your feelings and reality.
Yes.
And Kiss fans be caught up in their feelings all the time.
Oh yeah.
Kiss fans are caught up in their feelings all the time, myself included. But it's important to, step outside of that and look at the reality.
Your feelings are not facts.
Your feelings are not facts. In fact, it's usually the opposite. Yeah. Your feelings are just that. They're your feelings.
Yeah.
And I have to give it to Paul for, being the performer that he is and being the vocalist that he is. And I think that Paul's voice has been a hot topic for about a decade. But I fail to see people talk about it in a way that is respectful
or constructive at all. Like, we're not getting anywhere with
it's really easy to tear Paul down.
Yeah.
But nobody can even step up to his level in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, we're in our 20s. So even in our 20s, like, there's no way that we could do what Paul Stanley's doing.
Not even close.
Because, I'm a drummer myself, but to think about being on stage, playing a show for an entire 2 hours with all that pyro, playing in shows like in Indiana where it's already 110 with the heat index, humidity, heavy costume, the makeup, and then, the fact that you've been singing at the top of your game for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, it makes a lot of sense that Paul's voice will be in the condition that it is.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly really fortunate that his voice has lasted as long as it did. Because we were having a conversation about Meghan Trainor, who, if you don't know who Meghan Trainor is, she was the pop singer who released that song All About That Bass. There was a few other ones. She went through vocal issues
early in her career.
A couple years after that.
Yeah.
Very early in her career. She had a couple huge singles.
Yeah.
She was starting to tour. She was the hottest thing happening. And then all of a sudden I read she had to cancel shows because she lost her voice.
Yeah.
And my first thought was, whoa, sorry, Megan, but you're not on Paul's level. How are you losing your voice? And you know what, guys? The reality is that it happens.
Yeah.
I'm not a singer, so I can't empathize, but I can sympathize in the sense that, your voice is an instrument.
Definitely.
As a drummer, if I pop a drum head or break a drumstick, I just go to the store and pick out a new one. If you're a vocalist, you don't get that luxury.
No,
it's
not that easy.
If you damage your vocal cords, that's all she wrote.
Yeah.
You can get your surgery. You can have polyps removed. You can have your vocal exercises. No doubt in my mind, Paul Stanley has a vocal coach.
Yeah.
But if it happens, it happens.
Yeah, and I think
Meghan Trainor had to even come back and say, "Hey, I'm still going to perform. This is what I want to do, but I have to retrain myself how to sing."
Because she did get a surgery, I think, and
she
then
did. Probably the same one Paul did.
Probably, yeah. And then she did have to retrain herself, and you even kind of notice in her songs that came out after that the register's a little bit lower, it's a little bit different, because she probably can't hit the notes that she used to be able to hit. And she wasn't even out there touring for 30, 40 years.
She wasn't touring for 40 years. She wasn't singing songs like Heaven's on Fire, A Million to One, and King of Hearts, that's for sure. To her credit, she's a good singer, but she's not doing anything Paul Stanley's doing. And guess what? You know what? It still happens.
Right.
Not her fault. That's just life. So when you're faced with that, you have to redirect.
Yeah. And appreciate how long we've had Paul and his voice.
For sure. And then
it's a miracle.
Even Adele.
Oh, yeah.
Who you can consider on the level as Paul.
Right.
Where you have a voice that is, that iconic, that recognizable, but also a voice with that kind of caliber, that kind of power.
Yeah.
And she had the same issues where she went through vocal issues, and I don't even think she performs anymore much.
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
And maybe it has to do with that, maybe it didn't, but it is reality. And so I think for people to give Paul so much flack for that is really kind of disheartening.
I think it's selfish, honestly, because everybody wants Kiss to be the way they want it to be in their head, but you're never putting yourself in their shoes. They're human beings. Like, yes, we want them to put on a show for us and be the best that they can be, but at the end of the day, we're all human, and stuff happens that you can't predict and you can't avoid, no matter how hard you're trying, no matter, you could be using the best vocal techniques ever, because I know Paul's had coaches for a long time now, and it still happens. So I think people just need to, I don't know, just give them some respect and empathy.
Yeah, the only issue is age. Because, like I said, Paul used his voice correctly. He's a professional vocalist. He knows how to sing. He knows how to, obviously, he did it for 35, 40 years. He was able to sing at that caliber year after year without having any issues. I remember, I know of on the Psycho Circus tour, reunion tour, excuse me, there was a point where Gene lost his voice.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Gene Simmons lost his voice, and then they did a commercial. And somebody else, I think it was Spiro, had to sit in for Gene.
Wow.
And stand in for Gene in makeup because Gene couldn't sing, he couldn't speak.
That's fascinating.
And
I didn't know that.
Gene is not the vocalist.
No.
Paul Stanley is the guy, the singer in Kiss.
That just shows you it can happen to anybody.
Eric Singer has a great voice.
Because Gene's not wailing like
Gene,
Paul is.
to his credit, is a good singer.
He is, and he sings enough songs, but
he's not singing in the way Paul Stanley is. And guess what? Who loses their voice? Friggin' Gene.
Yeah.
Not Paul. That kind of shows you on what level Paul operates on.
Yeah.
There's only so many folks that can breathe that air. That Paul Stanley, Freddie Mercury, Robert Plant.
Agreed.
Guys like Zeppelin and and White Snake and Iron Maiden, Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
There's only so many guys that can breathe that air, and Paul's one of them. And the only issue that Paul is experiencing is age, because if I'm not mistaken, when when your vocal cords age, they just stiffen.
Yeah.
And it requires more air to actually produce that same sound. And so if Paul were to have a second set of lungs, I guarantee he could hit those same notes.
Oh, yeah.
Because the only thing holding him back is the fact that there isn't enough air pushing out.
Right.
And that is why you see Paul Stanley working out so much.
Yeah, that's so true.
He's always posting pictures of him in the gym, him
going
working
on 10-mile
out.
bike rides all the time.
And I was gonna say, and it's never he doesn't deadlift.
No.
He's not lifting and benching. He's doing cardio.
Yep.
He's doing endurance, and he's doing his running and his jogging and his biking, and he lifts little 5-pound weights. And not big weights. Don't need them. He needs little weights to do it over and over again.
Right.
To keep his blood pumping, his heart rate, and his lung power. Because what we don't think about is when Paul's on stage singing, not only is he on stage singing, but he's playing guitar, he's running around, he's talking, and he's just straight up breathing.
Oh yeah,
it
takes a lot of energy.
I
can't imagine.
Just watching these guys do what they do, even in 2021, is mind blowing because of like the energy that they have.
It's insane.
And the rate that they perform. Like when they say that they're the hardest working band, I mean, it shows.
Yeah.
It shows. Because I think that somebody in Paul's position would have given up long ago. Yeah. I don't think Gene and Paul are in another realm because
they're in their own category
of how hard they go, and it's always disheartening to hear people speak so ill of Paul and Paul's voice when the only thing keeping him back is age, and it's something that everybody can relate to, whether you're in Kiss and you're 70, you're a Kiss fan and you're 40 or 50, or you're like us and you're in your 20s. I am not the same way that I was 10 years ago. I cannot do the same things that I did 10 years ago, and give it 10 more years and it's going to change again. Yeah. So I think the fact that Paul is able to perform at where he is now it's on the same level as it's always been. No matter what tour, what era, Paul Stanley has always given it 110%.
He's always giving it his all, no matter what. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Just because he's 69, almost 70 years old, doesn't mean he's not going out and giving it 110%. And
Agreed.
The fact that he is still the fact that they're still wanting to go out and finish this end of the road tour. Their last show should have been July of this year.
Yeah.
And now
they could have just stopped. They could have just stopped where they were at before the pandemic. I feel like, that would have been fair with how long this has been going on.
Well, they could have said, hey, Dubai is going to be it. They could have said, you know what? Well, with all this, we're just going to do Dubai. We'll do the biggest show ever, and that'll be it. And Kiss fans would have been like, oh, this is a really good show. You would have been stuck with it no matter what.
But what you get.
But they're not doing that. They're really hell-bent on going out, finishing this tour, and giving us fans the best show that we can get. They want to make sure that this is how we remember Kiss.
Yes.
At the top of their game. And even though, is it like it was in 77? No. Is it like it was in 07? No. And it's not, because it's not 77. It's not 07. It's 2021. And we're still seeing Kiss at the top of their game as best as they can be. And I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I think we need to be grateful for that, honestly.
I really don't think that, hearing Paul lip sync doesn't bother me as much as it does some Kiss. I think that,
it would never stop me from seeing Kiss again. In fact, we might go again. We're considering.
We're thinking about Tinley Park in Illinois.
We'll keep you updated.
We'll keep you updated for sure. I think we're running out of time.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Daphne.
Thanks for having me on. I know I'm not Jeb, but I am happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and of course we will hopefully have you on again in the future. Talk more about Kiss. In the meantime, guys, go ahead, like this video. Please subscribe. We're looking to get 100 subscribers. I'm not sure if it's 100 by the time this video is uploaded, but even if it is, please subscribe. Like the video. Leave your comments on what you think about our topics and what we're discussing. Again, Paul's voice and the road tour. We want to connect with you guys. We want to share our love with Kiss with you. We want you to share your love of Kiss with us. And by liking and subscribing, you're showing us that you enjoy the content, you want more, and we're going to give you more. So this has been episode 9 of the Kiss Army Things podcast. I am Alex.
I'm Daphne.
I'm Xander, actually, but whatever. And this has been Kiss Army Things.